In this narrative, we are firstly welcomed into the lives of Shanti Cooper Trones and Dave Trones. Their radiant smiles exuded the bliss of newlyweds, enveloped in the warm embrace of their affection. It was a moment when aspirations twinkled in their eyes, and the horizon promised a cascade of infinite tomorrows, a vivid tableau of a life brimming with dreams and joy. In 2015, Dave Tron stumbled upon his ideal sanctuary, a captivating residence graced by an intriguing gargoyle nestled in the Delaney Park neighborhood of Orlando. This abode spanned 4,000 square feet, complete with a pool and a garage apartment. Eager to breathe modern elegance into the home, which originally showcased an antiquated Victorian charm, Dave and his beloved Shanti embarked on a transformative remodeling adventure. For David Trons, this house transcended mere renovation. It became his passion, an all-consuming obsession. Yet, as we delve deeper into their tale, a darker narrative unfolds. This residence stands as the fulcrum of their story, ultimately leading to Shanti's tragic fate. Former prosecutor Ryan Vecchio recounts that the saga commenced in the late afternoon of April 24, 2018, when Dave made an urgent call to 911. Upon the arrival of emergency responders, a profound tragedy unfolded as Shanti Cooper's life was extinguished at the tender age of 39. It soon became evident that from the very beginning, Dave Trones emerged as a person of interest in this case. The haunting question lingers. Could it be that without this house, Shanti might still be alive? Shanti Cooper, an accomplished entrepreneur born in 1979, welcomed her son, Jackson Cooper, during her first marriage to Jim Cooper. While the details of their union remain largely undisclosed, it ultimately unraveled due to Jim's tumultuous temperament, culminating in their divorce in 2013. With a resolute spirit, Shanti embraced a fresh start, relocating with Jackson to the vibrant city of Orlando. There, she dedicated herself to her work from the sanctuary of her home, striving to be the epitome of a devoted single mother. Although she enveloped Jackson in affection and joy, a yearning for a life partner lingered within her, someone who could offer the paternal love her son truly deserved. In March 2013, in her quest for love, Shanti took a courageous step and joined Match.com, a platform where fate awaited her. It was here that she encountered Dave Tronis, a gentleman hailing from the far reaches of Minnesota. Like Shanti, he was navigating the aftermath of his own divorce from Carol, his wife from 1999, and sought a companion to share in life's triumphs and tribulations. Despite the distance that separated them, their bond flourished through heartfelt correspondence and late-night conversations. In a remarkably short time, they grew intimately connected and chose to embark on a new chapter together. Just 5 months later, in September 2013, Dave made a daring decision to leave Minnesota and join Shanti and Jackson in Orlando. This marked a joyous period for Shanti, as she found solace and companionship in Dave's presence. However, in April 2015, their lives took a significant turn when Dave acquired a magnificent 4,000 square foot residence in the Delaney Park neighborhood, renowned for its sophistication and mere minutes from downtown Orlando. He purchased the home outright, utilizing the wealth he had amassed through his successful ventures in business and real estate. The couple was immediately enchanted by the charm of the neighborhood and the allure of their Victorian home. Yet, they envisioned a more contemporary aesthetic for the interior, yearning to infuse modernity into the classic design. They reached a mutual understanding that Shanti would spearhead the financial aspects of the renovations, given that Dave had purchased the property independently. This endeavor became an exhilarating journey for them as they collaborated to manifest their distinct ideas and aspirations. However, the narrative took an unforeseen twist. The renovation was not merely a cosmetic upgrade, it evolved into something far more complex. As time progressed, their lives became increasingly intricate. In the midst of these challenges, they chose to unite in marriage on February 22nd, 2017. Yet, post-wedding, the renovation spiraled into chaos. They stripped the house to its bones, with Shanti investing an astonishing $250,000. The project seemed endless, transforming their home into a tumultuous construction site. Living conditions became intolerable, prompting them to temporarily relocate to a modest apartment above the garage, leaving their beloved home in disarray. This period was fraught with frustration for Shanti, as their once harmonious family life was thrown into turmoil. Everything shifted dramatically on April 24th, 2018, around 4 p.m., when Dave made a pivotal call to 911, heralding a new chapter in their saga. The police arrived at East Copeland Drive approximately 20 minutes later, encountering 47-year-old Dave Tronis, the caller. Overcome with emotion, he wept upon their arrival. In the living room, they discovered the lifeless form of 39-year-old Shanti Cooper, her death shrouded in mystery. As investigators probed further, they unearthed disturbing evidence, marks on her neck that sparked suspicion, and bloodstains scattered throughout the residence. Among the various pieces of evidence, the peculiar demeanor exhibited by Dave during their discussions stood out prominently. He appeared to oscillate between a spectrum of emotions when reflecting on the tragic loss of his wife, which inevitably aroused suspicion. Nevertheless, these observations were merely preliminary, and the authorities required further insights to unravel the circumstances surrounding the incident. They invited Dave to the police station for a routine inquiry, assuring him that this was a standard procedure in the investigation. The detectives anticipated that this meeting would illuminate the situation further. At that juncture, Dave had the liberty to decline, as he was not under arrest. Yet, he chose to comply and visit the Orlando Police Department for questioning. The detectives aimed to commence their investigation by meticulously collecting and scrutinizing all evidence from the residence, while engaging in dialogue with Dave. Their foremost objective was to establish a rapport with him, fostering a sense of connection and support. This approach was designed to ensure that Dave felt at ease, thereby discouraging him from invoking his right to silence or requesting legal counsel. Establishing such a bond is vital in any interrogation, as it encourages the subject to divulge information voluntarily. The emotional display he exhibited seemed incongruous when viewed against the timeline of events. While such a reaction could be authentic, it manifested approximately 5 hours post the 911 call, which is atypical for an innocent individual who might typically exhibit signs of denial or bewilderment. Furthermore, Dave's response appeared to be triggered by the detective's remarks, which was perplexing given that he was already aware of the events that had transpired hours earlier. This raised questions regarding the sincerity of his emotions, suggesting a potentially contrived display rather than a genuine human response. It is crucial to recognize that atypical body language or reactions do not inherently indicate guilt. They necessitate thorough examination. Merely a minute and a half prior, Dave was engulfed in profound sorrow, tears streaming down his face as he mourned the loss of his beloved wife. In a startling transformation, he now found himself laughing heartily and engaging in light-hearted conversation with the detective, even sharing a sincere smile while discussing the hue of his eyes. Such a rapid fluctuation in emotions is atypical for someone grappling with trauma. It is rare for an individual who has just endured such a devastating loss to exhibit such starkly contrasting behavior. Within the next minute, Dave went from a state of calmness to one of deep anguish, only to revert back to tranquility, all in a fleeting moment. These sudden emotional shifts imply that he may be attempting to manufacture a response that does not arise organically. In contrast, authentic emotions tend to maintain a more consistent demeanor. At this juncture, the detective felt a sense of confidence in the connection she had forged with Dave. Regardless of whether his emotional display was sincere, it was the opportune moment to steer the dialogue towards encouraging him to express himself more candidly. She proceeded to inform him of his rights before delving deeper into the interrogation. After being apprised of his rights, Dave consented to share his account. The most arduous phase of the interrogation had passed. The emphasis now lay in allowing Dave to articulate his thoughts as openly as possible. Any discrepancies in his story would be meticulously scrutinized, alongside the evidence gathered from the residents and Shanti's remains, to unravel the truth of the events that transpired. The renovation of their new home held immense significance for Dave. However, it became evident that Shanti faced considerable challenges with the project, revealing that their marriage was not as perfect as it seemed. Despite this, Shanti had agreed to finance the renovations, believing that her financial input would grant her equal standing in the ownership of the house. Yet, her name was never included in the trust, which meant that should they part ways, Shanti would be left with nothing, despite her substantial investment in the renovations. In the state of Florida, marital properties acquired during the course of a marriage are typically subject to equal division in the event of a divorce. However, since the residence in question was purchased and placed into a trust prior to the marriage, it is classified as non-marital property and thus would not be subject to equal division. This circumstance may be purely coincidental, or it could provoke inquiries regarding Dave's long-term intentions for Shanti and the equity of their property arrangement. Dave indicated that he opted to sleep downstairs to afford Shanti and her son some privacy during his visits, as well as due to Shanti's snoring. However, when he referred to sleeping downstairs, he was actually alluding to the garage, a rather peculiar choice unless there were underlying issues. The detective found this detail curious, especially considering the couple was in the midst of renovating their home, which was already limited in space, yet they chose not to share a bed. This raised the detective's suspicions about potential pre-existing tensions between Shanti and Dave prior to her untimely demise. When questioned about the day he discovered Shanti's lifeless body, Dave claimed he had no interaction with her throughout the day, a statement that seemed odd given their cohabitation. He recounted waking up without feeling compelled to check on his wife before taking the dogs out. The detective found this narrative perplexing, as it lacked coherence. Dave's tendency to delve into excessive detail about unrelated matters is often a strategy employed by manipulators, designed to inundate the listener with information, thereby obscuring the line between truth and deception. Such conduct can cast doubt on the veracity of the statements made. When a suspect deliberately attempts to convey a specific emotion, such as sorrow, it becomes increasingly challenging for them to redirect their focus while sustaining that emotional facade. The effort required to feign a particular sentiment can hinder their ability to concentrate on other matters, complicating the maintenance of their act. Consider the scenario where an individual feigns sadness. They may find it challenging to authentically express that emotion while articulating intricate details. Conversely, a person who is truly heartbroken will likely exhibit a consistent emotional state, irrespective of their need to concentrate on other matters. Authentic emotions flow effortlessly, rendering them more stable and trustworthy indicators of one's true feelings. During the interrogation, the detective posed an open-ended inquiry regarding Dave's return to the residence. If Dave were innocent, his thoughts would likely gravitate towards his wife, Shanti, as discovering a deceased loved one is profoundly traumatic. Yet, rather than focusing on Shanti, Dave inundated the conversation with superfluous details about unrelated topics such as plants and forthcoming construction endeavors. This tactic of diversion implies a desire to redirect attention away from Shanti. It is noteworthy how long it took for Dave to finally mention her. As the narrative began to unravel, clarity emerged. Dave asserted that upon his return home, he found Shanti lifeless in the bathroom. He moved her to the living room and, within a mere 5 or 6 minutes, dialed 911. However, when the police arrived approximately 20 minutes later, they observed something peculiar. According to Dave's account, there should have been water everywhere, and Shanti's body ought to have been wet. Yet the entire house was dry, devoid of even a single drop of water, including on Shanti herself. This discrepancy suggested that Shanti's body had been removed long before, and the house had been meticulously cleaned. The detective broached the subject of strangulation to gauge Dave's reaction. Armed with the autopsy reports, the detective knew that Shanti's demise was attributed to blunt force trauma to the head and strangulation. She had not drowned. In fact, she had been deceased for several hours prior to the investigators' arrival. Additionally, one of Shanti's earrings was missing, and blood was discovered in the room. Furthermore, the absence of defensive wounds on her body led the detectives to conclude that she had been preparing for bed the night before her tragic attack and subsequent strangulation. To disguise the crime as an accident, her lifeless form was placed in a bathtub filled with water. Notably, Dave's body language revealed a striking lack of resistance to the probing questions posed to him. On the very day he found his wife deceased, a truly innocent individual would likely have reacted with outrage at the audacity of the detective's inquiries during such a delicate moment. At this juncture, the detective was convinced that Dave was concealing vital information, necessitating a decisive confrontation. They left him alone for approximately 2 hours to heighten the pressure. When the detectives returned after the initial confrontation, it was well past 2 a.m. The tactic of wearing down a suspect is a well-known approach, as the onset of physical and mental fatigue often leads to errors and potential confessions in an effort to escape the discomfort of interrogation. The detective employed a familiar strategy by introducing an alternative scenario to begin unraveling the suspect's story. They proposed the possibility of an accident, suggesting that if Dave were to acknowledge this, they would delve deeper and question whether it was truly an accident. Despite their persistent efforts to elicit a confession from Dave, he steadfastly maintained his innocence. Ultimately, the interrogation had to be halted, allowing Dave to leave, as nothing he had said could be used against him. The detectives were disheartened by this outcome, as their primary objective was to secure a confession. Nevertheless, this interrogation marked the inception of the investigation into Dave as the main suspect. In the ensuing months, investigators turned their attention to other potential suspects. Jim, Shanti's former husband, was questioned regarding his activities on April 24, 2018. With a robust alibi, he was swiftly dismissed as a suspect. Investigators also reached out to Shanti's circle of friends, who disclosed that although Dave had purchased the residence, it was Shanti who consistently covered all expenses, including the minor costs associated with maintaining the home. Dave's financial contributions were notably absent. After 2 months of diligent inquiry, detectives uncovered that Dave was affiliated with a venue known as Club Orlando, a bathhouse catering to same-gender clientele. A witness reported having seen Dave engaging in activities with other men at this establishment. Shanti's friends and family were convinced that she would never have accepted such behavior, implying that Dave was living a duplicitous life, concealing his true actions from Shanti. During a thorough search of their home, investigators discovered Shanti's engagement ring, which had been reported stolen months earlier, in Dave's possession. This revelation not only implicated him in the theft, but also raised serious questions about his intentions from the outset. Furthermore, they unearthed Shanti's diary, which poignantly articulated her feelings of despair, isolation, and trepidation, revealing her yearning to escape the life she had constructed. A note dated March 2016 contained a list of grievances against Dave, highlighting her belief that he was deceitful about his financial status and his habitual failure to contribute, even claiming forgetfulness when it was his turn to pay for dinner. She expressed dissatisfaction with the ongoing renovations that relegated them to living in the garage apartment. The correspondence discovered by detectives reinforced their suspicion that financial strain and issues related to the home renovations could have motivated Dave to take Shanti's life. Ultimately, Dave was apprehended 4 months later, in August 2018, and charged with first-degree murder in connection with Shanti Cooper's death. The trial for Dave Tron was slated to commence on February 3, 2020, but faced multiple delays due to the COVID pandemic and David's health complications. At long last, in January 2021, the trial commenced, marking the first occasion that Jackson, the son of Shanti, laid eyes on Dave since his apprehension. Jackson observed that Dave appeared in a dire state, clearly struggling. Throughout the proceedings, both the defense and prosecution deliberated on Dave's psychological condition, ultimately reaching a consensus that he was unfit to stand trial and should undergo a comprehensive evaluation. Consequently, the trial faced yet another postponement, now rescheduled for September 2023. Presently, Dave remains incarcerated, awaiting his day in court. Despite the ongoing delays, there is a prevailing sentiment that Dave bears the weight of responsibility for Shanti Cooper's demise, and he cannot evade the repercussions of his actions. The interrogation of Dave Tron's unraveled a tapestry of falsehoods, treachery, and concealed truths. As detectives meticulously dissected the layers of Dave's account, revealing contradictions and emotional fluctuations, a chilling portrait of a potential murderer emerged. This underscores the critical importance of conducting meticulous and perceptive interrogations in such grave matters. What are your reflections on this case? Do you believe Dave Tronis is indeed culpable for the murder of Shanti Cooper? Lori Kay Soares Hacking was born on December 31, 1976. Her biological mother was only 13 years old at the time, and she made the difficult decision to give Lori up for adoption. Fortunately, 4 months later, Lori found her forever family with Thelma and Eraldo Soares, a loving couple from California. They had been eagerly waiting to bring home a sibling for their adopted son, Paul, who was 7 years old at the time. Lori was truly a blessing to them, and they considered her their angel baby. Thelma and Eraldo, who were Mormon missionaries, raised Lori and Paul in a home filled with love, devotion to their religion, and strong family values. Thelma even took the initiative to learn Portuguese so that she could teach her children about their father's Brazilian heritage. However, in 1987, Thelma and Eraldo decided to divorce after growing apart over the years. At that time, Lori was just 10 years old. Eraldo stayed in California with Paul, who was graduating from high school and preparing for his own missionary work. On the other hand, Lori and Thelma moved to Orem, Utah, in search of a fresh start. Initially, it was challenging for Lori to adjust to the new environment as she was very close to her father. However, with time, she began to heal and find her place in Orem. She excelled academically, and her friends and family regarded her as a kind-hearted and outgoing young lady. Lori had a unique ability to understand and connect with those around her. Despite working part-time, she managed to maintain her academic excellence throughout her educational journey. Lori was a determined individual who had clear goals for her life. One of her aspirations was to meet her Prince Charming and build a family of her own. Little did she know that her own fairy tale would unfold during a school camping trip in 1994. It was during this trip to Lake Powell that Lori crossed paths with Mark Hacking. Mark was known for his playful nature and often engaged in pranks with his friends. Without hesitation, he casually tossed a smoldering log back into the fire, unknowingly scorching his own hands. Fortunately, Lori, a kind-hearted individual, rushed to his aid and skillfully treated his burns before expertly bandaging them. From that moment on, their destinies intertwined. Under the enchanting night sky and the fading embers of the campfire, Mark and Laurie's love story commenced as they engaged in deep conversations that stretched into the late hours. Soon enough, Laurie confided in her mother about Mark, and from then on, she never entertained the thought of another man in the same way. Sharing the same Mormon faith, Mark was on the verge of embarking on his missionary work in 1996 at the tender age of 20. Despite the distance, the couple nurtured their affectionate relationship as Mark ventured off to Winnipeg, Canada, to fulfill his duties. However, Mark's return was earlier than anticipated due to his involvement in a scandal caused by one of his roommates breaking missionary rules. Throughout this challenging period, Laurie stood steadfastly by his side, and upon his return, they seamlessly resumed their journey together. Meanwhile, Laurie pursued her education at Webster State University before transferring to the University of Utah, where she majored in business. During this time, Mark found solace in assisting with various odd jobs within the neighborhood. Tragically, fate took an unfortunate turn when Mark suffered a series of injuries, including a concussion, seizure, and a broken back after falling off a roof. This incident served as a catalyst for strengthening the bond between Laurie and Mark, as she lovingly cared for him during his recovery, completing the circle of their relationship. With their hearts set on a shared future, they began meticulously planning their lives together. Mark enrolled at the University of Utah to pursue his undergraduate degree, with aspirations of eventually pursuing a career in medicine. Meanwhile, Laurie and Mark prepared to take a significant leap forward in their relationship. On August 7, 1999, they exchanged vows in a temple ceremony in Utah. Later that year, in December, Laurie graduated with the highest honors, summa cum laude, earning a bachelor's degree in management. Simultaneously, Mark took on the role of a supervisor in an apartment complex where the couple resided after their marriage, all while continuing his full-time studies. In this manner, they were able to reside in the apartment without paying rent as long as they fulfilled their management responsibilities. Their bond grew even stronger after they tied the knot. Their loved ones often described them as a deeply affectionate couple who collaborated seamlessly. While they pursued their individual aspirations, they remained actively involved in their church and community. Mark shared his love for running with Laurie, and they frequently went jogging together when not occupied with work or church obligations. Laurie secured a position as a stockbroker's assistant at Wells Fargo, and Mark found employment as an orderly at a nearby psychiatric hospital while completing his studies. Over time, Mark strived to achieve his goal of gaining admission to medical school by interviewing at various universities, including the University of North Carolina in Chapel Hill. Upon graduation, his diligence paid off, and he was admitted to the medical program at the University of North Carolina. Finally, their aspirations were coming to fruition, and they could now begin the family they had always desired. However, Laurie had to resign from her job to relocate to North Carolina so that Mark could pursue his studies. Consequently, in July 2004, she tendered her resignation, and the young couple commenced preparations to move from Utah to North Carolina. It was during this period that a radiant Laurie revealed some thrilling news. She was 5 weeks pregnant with their first child. After a decade-long relationship, their idyllic life together was on the verge of completion. They were on the brink of embarking on the most significant journey of their lives. On July 19, 2004, Mark awoke to an empty bed. Assuming Laurie had gone for a run before heading to work, he contacted her office around 10 a.m., only to learn she had not arrived. Following a conversation with her colleague, he was directed to her supervisor, who advised him to contact the authorities and report her disappearance. Mark contacted the authorities to report Laurie missing, but was advised to wait for 24 hours before filing a report. Undeterred, he decided to search for her at Memory Grove Park, a popular spot for runners due to its numerous trails. Throughout his search, Mark remained in contact with his family, informing them of Laurie's sudden disappearance. Concerned friends and relatives gathered at the park to assist in the search for the pregnant woman. Reports indicate that an overwhelming number of people, exceeding 1,000, joined the effort to comb the area. Many were convinced that she had been abducted. Family members, church members, and community volunteers tirelessly searched far and wide, but unfortunately, their efforts yielded no results. Eventually, Mark reached out to the police again, this time sounding frantic. Finally, the authorities joined the volunteers, deploying K-9 units and helicopters to conduct an extensive search of the park. Although Lori's car was found near the park entrance, she was nowhere to be found. Both the Hacking and Soares families organized a press conference to draw attention to Lori's disappearance. Mark, visibly distraught, pleaded for any information regarding Lori and her safe return. While the family sought assistance from the media, the police began focusing on individuals close to Lori, hoping to uncover new leads. As is customary in cases involving a missing spouse, the husband becomes the primary person of interest in the investigation. Mark underwent an interview with Salt Lake City Police Department Detective Kelly Kent. During the interview, Mark provided details about his marriage to Lori, portraying a picture-perfect relationship. He recounted the events leading up to his wife's disappearance, explaining that they were planning to relocate for his medical career. When Detective Kent delved deeper into the matter, Mark revealed his intention to specialize in oncology, the study and treatment of tumors. However, when asked to spell oncology, Mark struggled to do so. It caused surprise, but it did not imply that he was a murderer. Investigators continued to interview individuals close to the couple. The accounts they received seemed to align with what Mark had previously stated, that the couple was happily married and ready for a new chapter in their lives. Despite their differences, both Lori and Mark managed to make their contrasting qualities complement their relationship. Lori's colleagues also confirmed that the couple shared a sweet and intimate bond. Meanwhile, investigators conducted a thorough search of Lori's car. The first thing that caught their attention was the positioning of the car seat and rear-view mirrors, which seemed more suitable for someone larger than Lori. It appeared as if someone of Mark's height had driven the car last. Additionally, they discovered a receipt for a new mattress and bedding purchased on July 19, 2004, at 10:23 a.m. from a nearby sleep and bedding store. The investigators interviewed the shop owners and learned that Mark had been shopping around the same time he reported Lori missing to the police. Mark was interviewed again, but continued to deny any knowledge of Lori's disappearance. He reiterated his previous account of events during the initial interview with the police. When questioned about the mattress, Mark explained that Lori had an accident and they had disposed of the old mattress a week prior. He stated that they were currently using the old box spring for sleeping. While it seemed plausible that he had purchased a new mattress for their upcoming move, the timing appeared suspicious once again. Mark was released as all the evidence was purely circumstantial. In the early hours of July 20th, 2004, around 2 a.m., the police received a call from a Salt Lake City motel regarding a man who was seen running naked and screaming outside the establishment. When the police arrived, they found Mark running around without clothes, except for his sandals. Based on the information provided, it was reported that Mark visited the motel earlier, where he engaged in heavy drinking and later consumed barbiturates. Subsequently, he removed his clothes and ran around the parking lot in the nude. Instead of arresting Mark, authorities contacted his family, and his brother, Scott, arrived to take him home. A peculiar note was discovered on Mark's Palm Pilot by his brother, which stated, "To everyone from Mark, this is justice, I'm so sorry." Law enforcement didn't believe Mark was mentally unstable. They speculated that he was aware of the impending consequences and attempted to feign insanity as a last resort. Notably, the fact that he retained his sandals was a significant indicator, as noted by renowned Federal Bureau of Investigation profiler Candice DeLong, who remarked, "He kept his shoes on, his sandals. That's not generally something we see in someone psychotic." Mark's family eventually admitted him to the psychiatric ward at the university for evaluation. As investigators delved deeper, they uncovered Mark's dual life. Born on April 24, 1976, to Dr. Douglas Hacking and nurse Janet, Mark was the fifth child among 7 siblings. Known for his mischievous nature, Mark often put himself in risky situations for the sake of humor. His father and brothers were esteemed professionals in the medical field, making it all the more surprising that Mark was not enrolled in the medical program at the University of North Carolina. Furthermore, it was revealed that Mark had not completed his undergraduate studies at the University of Utah, having failed in 2002 and deceiving others about his academic achievements. With the media equally invested in the investigation, even more revelations about Mark's past would come to light. Reports indicated that Mark had engaged in activities that were not in line with the principles of a true Mormon. There were allegations that Mark had played a central role in the scandal that caused him to return early from his missionary work in 1996. These activities included smoking, drinking alcohol, and engaging in intimate relationships with some of the girls he had recruited into the faith. It was evident that Mark had strayed far from the values he was raised with, and the investigators were about to uncover just how far. After obtaining a search warrant, investigators began to search the couple's shared apartment. Detective Kent noticed several inconsistencies in the apartment. Lori's purse, wallet, and car keys were found inside, even though the car had been discovered at the park. Lori's wedding ring was hidden away in her jewelry box, and the bathtub appeared to have been recently cleaned with the scent of bleach lingering in the air. Detective Kent also observed a large bouquet of flowers, which she suspected had been purchased to reconcile after a disagreement between the couple. This theory seemed to be confirmed when investigators discovered a letter addressed to Mark from Lori in the second bedroom. In the letter, she expressed her contemplation of leaving him, feeling that she had been married to a different version of him. The note read, "I want to grow old with you, but I cannot continue under these circumstances. Coming home to our apartment is painful for me. I cannot envision a life with you unless changes are made." Further examination of the apartment revealed the presence of a new mattress, and the bedsheets appeared to be freshly unpacked and arranged rather than having been slept in. Moreover, a hunting knife containing hair and fibers was discovered concealed in a drawer of the bedside table. Notably, the handle of the knife bore a fingerprint and a small bloodstain. In addition, investigators meticulously examined Mark's SUV and detected a bloodstain on the back seat, along with handprints near the back door. These findings were consistent with someone bracing themselves while loading a heavy object into the vehicle. Both the knife and the bloodstain from the car's back seat were sent for testing. As a result, the nature of the crime began to resemble a homicide. However, the police chose to remain discreet about their suspicions, keeping their cards close to their chests. Instead, they focused on constructing a timeline leading up to Lori's disappearance. Valuable information was obtained from the University of Utah Psychiatric Ward, where it was reported that an individual had disposed of a large item in their dumpsters. Although searches were conducted in and around the area, the dumpsters had already been emptied before the investigation for Lori commenced. Recognizing that Mark had been utilizing dumpsters to discard potential evidence, law enforcement officers scoured the vicinity behind the church attended by Mark and Lori. It was there that they stumbled upon an old mattress, although its top cover had been torn off. This discovery contradicted the timeline provided by Mark, as the mattress should have been removed if it had been discarded a week earlier. Subsequently, Lori's colleagues from Wells Fargo were contacted. They informed investigators that when Mark had called on Monday, it seemed peculiar that he was unaware of Lori's whereabouts. Furthermore, they disclosed an intriguing detail. Lori had made several calls regarding financial aid from the university, during which she appeared visibly distressed and left the office in tears. However, when the couple attended a farewell party hosted by their friends later that evening, Lori seemed to be in good spirits. Detectives then reviewed surveillance footage from a convenience store, which confirmed that Lori and Mark had been shopping together on Sunday evening, the day prior to her disappearance. The store clerk corroborated this information. He informed investigators that he was acquainted with Mark due to his frequent visits to purchase cigarettes. He recollected having a conversation with Mark, during which Mark discreetly signaled him not to disclose his smoking habit to Lori when her attention was diverted. Holloman added that Mark appeared content, while Lori seemed despondent. However, at approximately 1:30 a.m., Mark returned to the convenience store unaccompanied. This raised suspicions among the police, as they pondered whether he had already committed the crime or was contemplating doing so. Nevertheless, the police received new information at this point. The blood discovered on the knife and in the car matched Lori's. Despite the absence of a body, there was still insufficient evidence for a case. However, an unexpected twist awaited them in this peculiar narrative. A week after Lori was reported missing, the volunteer search was called off by officials following the receipt of new information. Their focus shifted to the municipal landfills, where specialized teams would conduct the search. This information was kept confidential until Mark's release from the psychiatric ward. While undergoing treatment for his emotional breakdown, Mark sought the assistance of defense attorney G. Gilbert Athay. On August 2, 2004, Mark was apprehended on suspicion of the aggravated murder of his wife, Lori. The public soon became aware that Mark Hacking was now the primary suspect in Lori Hacking's murder. Mark's father, Douglas, confirmed this in a statement provided to the media. He explained that on July 24, 2004, Scott and Lance visited Mark while he was receiving treatment for his emotional turmoil. They confronted him about Lori, and he eventually broke down and confessed to everything. Mark claimed that Lori had been investigating student housing and financial aid offered by the University of North Carolina when she discovered his web of lies. This occurred on July 16, 2004, the same day her colleagues reported that she appeared upset and left work. When Lori confronted him, he concocted yet another story, suggesting that a computer glitch may have been responsible for his application not reaching their offices on time. Lori took the initiative to inform the university about the issue and requested a callback to resolve any concerns. Unfortunately, it was the weekend, and she had to wait until Monday to receive a response. However, when Monday arrived, she was shocked to discover that Mark had completely fabricated his entire life. Mark tried to explain that the incident had caused some strain, but they managed to overcome their problems somehow. Nevertheless, Lori's letter confronting him about his actions deeply offended Mark, leaving him feeling further insulted. In a fit of anger, he retrieved his .22 caliber rifle, leaving a note in the spare room before entering the master bedroom and tragically shooting Lori in the head. Afterward, he wrapped her body in garbage bags and carpet, placing her in the back seat of his SUV. He then disposed of all evidence by tearing off the top cover of the mattress and stuffing it into more garbage bags. Mark secured the torn mattress to the roof of his SUV and placed all the evidence, along with Lori's lifeless body, in the back seat. He disposed of Lori's body in garbage bags at the university and got rid of the mattress at the church. Mark explained to his brothers that all these actions were an attempt to cover up the crime. Douglas believed that Mark had experienced a psychological breakdown due to the pressure he felt from their family's reputation and standing within the community when Lori discovered his deception. On August 9, 2004, Mark was charged with first-degree murder. After a month of extensive searching in landfills, Sergeant J.R. Nelson of the Salt Lake City Police Department discovered hair and part of Lori's jawbone on October 1, 2004. Eventually, the majority of her remains were found and sent to the coroner's office for examination. The medical examiners were able to identify her through dental records despite the advanced state of decomposition. The inability of examiners to determine the exact cause of Lori's death or her pregnancy status prevented them from charging him with the death of the unborn child. The discovery of Lori's body, however, strengthened the case against Mark, according to Salt Lake Deputy District Attorney Bob Stott. He mentioned that this development allowed them to establish that a murder had indeed occurred. Stott also highlighted the relief felt by Lori's family, as they now knew that Lori's final resting place would not be in a landfill. Mark initially pleaded not guilty to first-degree murder charges on October 29, 2004, despite pleas from Lori's brother to spare the family further grief by admitting guilt. However, he later changed his plea to guilty on April 15, 2005, in exchange for the dropping of additional charges. Mark was sentenced to 6 years to life in prison under Utah law, with an additional year added to his minimum term due to the use of a firearm in Lori's death. The decision by the Utah Board of Parole to delay Mark's parole consideration until 2035, requiring a minimum of 30 years served, was met with approval by Thelma Soares, Lori's mother. She had initially felt that the 6-year minimum sentence was inadequate, but the change renewed her faith in the justice system. Lori's family decided to replace her married name on her tombstone with the Portuguese word Filhinha, meaning little daughter. The passage of Utah House Bill 102, also known as Lori's Law, on March 20, 2006, increased the minimum sentence for those convicted of first-degree murder to 15 years before parole consideration. On June 6, 2005, Mark's father, Douglas, issued a final statement to the press addressing the murder and providing clarification on the events leading to the confession and conviction. Mark's acknowledgement of his actions and his aspiration to become the man Lori always desired him to be were encapsulated in a quote that marked the end of the story. In June 2006, Utah prison authorities stumbled upon Mark's illicit activities of selling personal belongings, including autographs and hand tracings, on an online platform named Murder Auction. Following his apprehension, Mark willingly ceased his online sales. Undoubtedly, the most disturbing facet of this case lies in the fact that the woman who was loved and trusted by her husband ultimately fell victim to his heinous act of murder.